Gary Cooper was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. He was renowned for his rough charm, natural ease, and unforgettable roles. He was honest and brave in every part, whether he was a cowboy, a soldier, or a regular hero. He won an Oscar for his role in Sergeant York, and High Noon is still one of his most famous movies. But recently, something shocking was found. Cooper told them to destroy a High Noon scene. What did he hide? What did the people behind the camera know? Stay tuned as we find out the truth. Although Gary Cooper was a huge star in Hollywood by the early 1950s, his career was taking a turn for the worse. Most of his recent movies didn't get the praise or box office success that people were expecting from his usual work, which made people wonder if he was still a good actor. In addition to these problems at work, Cooper's health was also getting worse. After being hurt in several sets, he was left with stomach ulcers. He wasn't sure if he was ready to play the lead in High Noon after he turned 50 because he thought he was too old for the part. Cooper finally agreed to play Marshal Will Kane in High Noon, even though he had a lot of doubts. The movie, which was directed by Fred Zinnemann, is about a police officer who has to deal with a group of killers who come on the noon train by himself. The story is told in real time, which makes it more intense for watchers. Cooper does a great job of showing Marshal Kane as a man who is torn between duty and being alone. Because of his health, he is more vulnerable when he plays, which makes his character seem more real. The movie High Noon did really well when it came out. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards and won 4, with Cooper getting Best Actor. Fans saw him as one of the best actors in Hollywood after hearing how deep and sincere his performance was. A well-known film reviewer named John Wayne liked High Noon. He didn't like the movie at first, but later he accepted the award for Cooper and praised his friend's performance. High Noon is still a great example of how tough and dedicated Gary Cooper was to his work. Even though his health and business were failing, he gave a great performance that will go down in movie history. But something very important happened in Hollywood while the movie was being made. With the Hollywood blacklist going on, this was a time of political harassment and betrayal in personal relationships. In the middle of all these problems, Gary Cooper asked that a scene from High Noon be destroyed. Cooper made sure that he took out some scenes from High Noon before it came out, which changed the story in the end. A lot of cutting was done on the movie, and some scenes and subplots were taken out. At first, the movie was meant to start and end with scary scenes of Hadleyville as a ghost town. The beginning was supposed to show the town's sad future through its empty streets, broken down buildings, and tumbleweeds. Then, when the story started, Hadleyville turned into a busy town. In the end, it went back to being abandoned, showing what happened because the people in the town were afraid. These scenes were finally taken out of High Noon before it came out because Cooper thought they took away from the main story. The movie could focus on Kane's fight, which would make it more intense and moving. In the original writing, there was also a side story with Marshal Toby, another deputy. Toby was supposed to take a prisoner back to Hadleyville. His trip was shown in 3 scenes, traveling with the prisoner, facing problems along the way, and getting to town, probably after the big fight. The scenes were shot, but they were cut out during the editing process. Cooper and the other producers thought that the side story would take attention away from the main story and the build-up to Noon. In the bar scene, a character says, "You ain't got 2 deputies," which is a reference to Toby. Harv Pell says he quit today. At first, this line was about both Harvey Pell and Toby, but since Toby's parts were cut, it now seems like an unnecessary extra. By cutting out Toby's story, the movie was able to focus more on Kane's fight, making him seem even more alone and morally strong. You could say that these editing choices helped make High Noon a tight, character-driven story that was different from other westerns. One of the reasons Cooper's High Noon was such a great movie was that it had a lot to do with the political situation of the early 1950s. Carl Foreman, who wrote the script for the movie, was a large figure in Hollywood during the Blacklist era. During the McCarthy era, the business was linked to the House Un-American Activities Committee, which caused a scandal. Carl Foreman was put on a blacklist when he refused to help the UAC. That year, Huey called him in because they thought he had ties to the Communist Party in the past. High Noon was still being made at this point. He admitted that he had been a member in the past, but he wouldn't say the names of the other members. This made him an uncooperative witness, and Hollywood companies put him on a blacklist. This hurt not only his career but also his professional ties and put the High Noon movie production at risk. Stan Kramer, who produced the movie, was worried about this, so he persuaded Foreman to sell his share in their production business. He also took away Foreman's credit as an associate director, but the movie still listed him as the screenwriter. The story of High Noon is similar to Foreman's own life. Marshal Will Kane, played by Gary Cooper, is in immediate danger because an angry criminal is coming toward him. Kane tries to get help from the people in the town, but only gets deception and cowardice in return. In the end, he has to face the threat by himself. People often see this plot as a metaphor for the McCarthy era, showing how people like Foreman felt alone and persecuted when they spoke out against HUAC. Foreman drew connections between his life and the story of the movie, saying that Hadleyville stood for Hollywood and the bad guy for HUAC. Meanwhile, Foreman was still on a ban even though High Noon got a lot of good reviews, so he had to move to Britain to keep working. He worked on important projects like the bridge on the River Kwai while he was in hiding. But because he was on a blacklist, no one gave him credit. High Noon shows how people made personal and professional sacrifices during a rough time in the American film business. When Cooper wasn't popular for his role in High Noon, he had an interesting childhood that people often talked about. To give him his full name, Gary Cooper was born Frank James Cooper on May 7, 1901 in Helena, Montana. The English immigrants Charles Henry Cooper and Alice Brazier Cooper had 2 kids. He was the younger of the 2. His dad was born in Houghton Regis, England, but he went on to become a well-known lawyer, rancher, and Montana Supreme Court judge. Gillingham, England, was where his mother was from. Charles Cooper, his father, bought the 600-acre 7-bar-9 cattle ranch near Craig, Montana in 1906. Craig is about 50 miles north of Helena by car. Gary and Arthur, his older brother, would often spend the summers there. They liked living on the land and doing things like riding horses, hunting, and fishing. In 1909, his mother took him and his brother to England so they could go to school there. They went to Bedfordshire's Dunstable Grammar School. The boys lived with friends of their dad in Houghton Regis during this time. At this school, Gary learned Latin, French, and English history, but he never got used to the dressy Eton ties. In the end, he moved back to the United States with his family in 1912 and continued his schooling at Helena's Johnson Grammar School. When Gary Cooper was 15, he hurt his hip in a car crash that changed his whole life. As his doctor had told him, he moved in with his family on the ranch to get better by horseback riding. Because of this treatment, he now walks with a stiff, off-balance gait and rides horses in a way that makes him stand out. In 1918, he quit school and went to work on the ranch full-time as a cowboy. His dad made plans for him to go to a different high school in Bozeman, Montana, which is in Gallatin County. There he met an English teacher who pushed him to take part in debates and plays. Then, while he was still in high school in 1920, he took 3 art classes at Montana Agricultural College in Bozeman. This was influenced by the work of Western artists such as Charles Marion Russell and Frederick Remington. Cooper continued his art studies at Grinnell College after 1922, even though he was doing well in school and working as an art editor for the college. The yearbook says that Cooper suddenly left in February 1924. Before he moved to Helena, he worked as an artist in Chicago and sold editorial drawings to a nearby newspaper. Later that year, Gary moved to Los Angeles because his dad asked him to. He worked a few different jobs there before getting back in touch with friends from Montana who were working as stunt riders and actors in movies. This introduction to the movie business was the start of his successful acting career. In Hollywood, Gary Cooper had a lot of success, but his start was a surprise. He moved to Los Angeles to be with his folks after graduating from Grinnell College in 1924. He wanted to be an artist at first, using his skill for drawing to help him, but there was too much competition in the art world for him to do well there. He met up with some friends from Montana who worked as actors and stunt writers in low-budget movies while he was in Los Angeles. With these contacts, he was able to work as an extra in movies and make $5 a day. He also made $10 a day as a stunt writer. He was very useful on set because he was good at riding horses and ready to do dangerous movie stunts. Cooper got a steady income and a chance to work in the movie business, even though the work was dangerous for his health. He was already a strong screen personality from a young age, which wasn't missed. He started getting small parts, and people began to notice how good an actor he was. In the early movies he was in, like The Eagle, he played a masked Cossack. Even though it was a small part, his first speaking role in the movie showed how good he could be as an actress. Cooper was drawn to more serious acting parts because stunt work wasn't a very good job. He paid money for a screen test and made casting head Nan Collins his agent. Because there were already players with the name Frank Cooper, his agent suggested that he change his first name to Gary, after the city where she grew up, Gary, Indiana. He was happy with his new name, Gary Cooper, and started getting bigger parts under that name. Cooper's journey from wanting to be an artist to becoming a Hollywood actor was marked by hard work and the ability to change. His early work as a stuntman and extra helped him improve his skills and give him a unique view of the movie business, which set him up for a successful playing career. In the beginning of his work, he became well known through silent and early sound movies. This showed off his charm on screen and helped him become known as Hollywood's most popular Western star. People knew him for playing moral and tough parts. As early as 1926, Cooper got a big part in Henry King's silent Western The Winning of Barbara Worth. In this scene, he played Abe Lee as a tough cowboy. Cooper's performance brought out how real the Western figures were. This made it possible for him to become a Western star in Hollywood. Many actors from the silent age found it hard to make the switch to sound films, but Cooper did it with ease. Vic Fleming directed his first big sound movie, The Virginian, which came out in 1929. Cooper played the title character, a simple and honest cowboy who is caught between his best friend and a group of thieves who are stealing cattle. He had a deep voice and perfect performance in the movie, which made the audience feel something. It helped him become known as a strong, quiet actor. The movie is also known for the line, "If you want to call me that, smile," which describes how he acts on screen. Because of these roles, Cooper became Hollywood's most famous Western star. Because he wrote so many characters with strong morals and independence, American viewers really connected with those types of characters. An important part of his lasting legacy in film is his ability to show strong feelings with little dialogue, and his true portrayal of the American cowboy archetype. He won several Academy Awards and was praised by critics throughout his career, which showed how versatile and deep he was as an actor. He played the lead role in the 1932 movie A Farewell to Arms, which was based on Ernest Hemingway's book of the same name. Although the Catholic Church attacked the movie for showing a relationship between a British nurse and an American ambulance driver during World War I, it was a huge hit. Cooper became well known in Hollywood despite the controversy. His first Oscar nod for Best Actor came from his part in Mr. Frank Capra directed Deeds Goes to Town in 1936. Gary Cooper played Longfellow Deeds. He was from a small town and received a huge fortune before moving to a big city. He became known as an all-American hero because of this. After that, Cooper got his first Academy Award for Best Actor in 1941 for his role as Alvin York in the movie Sergeant York. This was a biopic of York, who was one of the most decorated American soldiers in World War I. Cooper's performance was so good that it won him the prestigious Oscar. These parts showed off Cooper's acting skills and cemented his reputation as a main man who can give different characters depth and realism. Before the High Noon scandal, in which Gary Cooper asked that some parts be taken out, his personal life was full of public scandals and controversies caused by passionate relationships. Cooper began an unhappy relationship with Lupe Velez in 1929. While they were both working on Wolf Song. Since Velez had a fiery personality, the couple often fought in public and felt very strongly about each other. During their fights, they often got physical, and Velez hit Cooper several times. Their relationship was very unstable, and it hurt Cooper's health by making him nervously tired and caused him to lose a lot of weight. In the end, he broke up with her because his mother told him to in 1931 Nuts. No, sir. She said that ghosts were normal. When they broke up, Velez pointed a gun at Cooper as he was getting on a train but missed. It was like something out of a movie. Cooper married Veronica Rocky Balfe, a celebrity, in 1933 to fix things in his life. She was a New York debutante who used to be an actor and helped Cooper keep his life in balance. In 1937, they had a girl together named Maria. Even though it looked like they were a happy family, Cooper had a lot of affairs which put stress on their marriage. Cooper started an affair with Patricia Neal, who was 21 years old at the time, while they were both working on the Fountainhead in the late 1946. Cooper was 46 years old at the time. They were together for 3 years, but things were always getting worse between them. Cooper's wife told him about the affair, which caused them to split up for a short time in 1951. Cooper said he loved Neal, but he didn't try to get a divorce. There were big effects from the incident. Neal later told him that Cooper had set up an abortion for her when she got pregnant with his child. Neal broke up with her in late 1951 because the relationship was too hard on him emotionally and socially. Cooper's personal life was unstable, which led to many scandals and made him stand out in the Hollywood business. It was also a big difference between how he played a moral hero on screen and how his real life was, full of affairs and drama. The author for High Noon wasn't the only one who got into a political fight. There were also political issues with Gary Cooper that hurt his success, especially during the McCarthy era. Even though Cooper was a conservative, he was in movies like For Whom the Bell Tolls, which was based on Ernest Hemingway's book of the same name, and was about the Spanish Civil War. There were clear anti-fascist themes in the movie, but this didn't change Cooper's status in Hollywood. Cooper was asked to appear as a friendly witness before the House Un-American Activities Committee in 1947, when the Red Scare was getting worse. He talked about times when he heard ideas that he thought were very un-American, like the idea that the U.S. Constitution was out of date or that Congress wasn't needed. Cooper said he turned down stories that he thought had communist ideas in them, but he didn't say that anyone was a communist. During this time, Cooper was also working with High Noon and Carl Foreman. Foreman was also brought before HUAC because he used to be a member of the Communist Party. This made Gary Cooper demand that some scenes from High Noon be wiped out. Even though it could have hurt his career, Cooper stood up for Foreman and called him the finest kind of American. When producer Stanley Kramer tried to take Foreman's name off the screenplay credits, Cooper and director Fred Zinnemann said they would quit the project if Foreman's work wasn't recognized. Because of this, he was still listed as the author in the credits. Later, Foreman praised Cooper's unique support, saying that among his peers, Cooper was the only big one who tried to help, the only one. The story of High Noon, which is about a marshal who is left alone by his community, is often seen as a metaphor for how people felt alone during the Red Scare. In the 1950s, Cooper's defense of Foreman shows how complicated Hollywood's political scene was. It shows how personal views and professional duties could clash. From the late 1940s to the early 1950s, Gary Cooper had a number of health problems that affected both his personal and work life. These problems happened while he was filming High Noon. He had bleeding ulcers in his stomach, anemia, and jaundice, all of which needed multiple surgeries and time to heal. These health problems also changed how he appeared on TV, making him less of a star than he used to be. A string of bad box office performances during this time made Cooper's job even more difficult. Movies like Saratoga Trunk and Unconquered did not do as well at the box office as people thought they would. Saratoga Trunk was one of Warner Brothers' most popular movies in 1946, but it got bad reviews from critics like Bosley Crowther of the New York Times, who said Cooper's acting was weak. Also, Cecil B. DeMille's Unconquered was a big-budget movie that didn't do as well as expected, which added to the idea that Cooper's movie star draw was going down. His status in Hollywood dropped because of all the problems he had at work and with his health. People in the public eye could tell that something was wrong with his health because he was less calm and quiet. Cooper did, however, give a great performance as Marshal Will Kane in High Noon in 1952. Even though Cooper is still having health problems and has recently had problems at work, his performance was praised for being realistic and full of depth. This part won him his second Academy Award for Best Actor, proving once again that he is a leading man in Hollywood. Cooper's career got a boost from High Noon, which also showed off his lasting skill and ability to bounce back from setbacks.